If you've watched my videos for a long time, you'll know that I've had this welder for over 30 years. And why is it sitting in the middle of the floor? Because I need to weld with it. Every time you put a vehicle in, it becomes a shelf. Nothing's ever simple. Nothing is ever simple. Nothing takes 15 minutes. Nothing goes by the book. Oh yeah, that's why I'm making this video. I got a lot of things going on, as we all do in our busy lives. I was here till late last night. Of course, I don't do anything until late at night, and I've almost got the turbo weasel put back together. Turn the lamp on. I've got 100% battery. So I've got the bottom ball joint installed the correct direction. What you didn't see is that I had it installed upside down. Oops. So I fixed it. I had to unloosen my bolts that I torqued down to 182,000 Newton meter metric tons. I tightened them real good. And I put a grease fitting in. Originally, the grease fitting on the original GM riveted and ball joint protruded from here. I think it was in the front, but it was right there. This ball joint, I'm going to discuss this ball joint in a minute. This ball joint has the hole in the side not too far away, and they give you a straight grease fitting right there. And the only problem with that is you can't really get in there because it's pointing at the steering knuckle. So I went into my large collection of grease fittings, and 30 minutes later, there's the welder. I'll show you why, and then I'll discuss the ball joints with you. So, in my vast collection of junk, I've got some hydraulic grease fittings, SAE, Society of Automotive Engineers, and some metric hydraulic grease fittings. I've had these for 25 years. They're still made in China or Taiwan. And the SAE, I've got two 90s left. I actually have none. The 45-degree angle, none. In the metric, I have a few, but there were 20, now there's 10. I've had these for 25 years. And in the back, I've got a box that I paid $5 for somewhere of Universal Lubricating Systems, a subsidiary of Lidl, Allegheny Avenue, Oakmont, Pennsylvania, grease fittings, 1/4 by 20, 90-degree angle. So you'd think all I'd have to do was bring the ball joint over and pop it in one of these grease fittings, either an SAE or a metric. Right. 30 minutes later, I've got a grease fitting in the hole. But it's not what you think. That grease fitting will point when it's installed in the control arm. If the middle of the vehicle, the engine's there, it will point right there for easy access. But the problem is, the hole in here is not tapped. It's just a random hole that they've drilled to some random dimension, and it fits their random grease fitting, which has green paint on it, which may mean it's metric. It's not. Put the metric one in, it just slides into the hole. SAE one doesn't go in. Catches on a 1/4 of a thread, and then nothing happens, and I tried vice gripping it in, and I was worried I'd break it in the hole. So out came my tap and die set. Mastercraft. I've had this for 35 years, and just judging by the look, where do you think it's made? Mastercraft is, of course, Canadian Tire. Probably made in Japan. Could be made in China. So I took a 1/4-20 die, and I put the grease fitting in the die with a pair of vice grips, and I cranked on it, and then I went in the hole loosely, and only the last thread just below the shoulder caught. So this thing is barely, and I mean barely, held on. You put some grease in there, and grease fitting is going to pop off. Like I said, nothing is easy. So then we'll wander over here to the ball joint box. I ordered these off of eBay several months ago when Mrs. XCW decided she needed ball joints after I told her and a couple of garages told her, blah, 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 blah. So I went on eBay and I searched around and I found some Spicer. And you'd think they'd be made in USA, wouldn't you? But judging by the look of the rice cardboard box and the fact that these do not have much in the way of markings, they've got some 8 something K8 over here. I'm not sure if this device will focus. Something 3. On this side, it's got a C something, Corvette C1, 53 to 62. Wow, I can see that better with the phone device screen than I can with my eyes with my brand new 1.5 reading glasses. So I think that these are Xinjiang, China, Taiwan, Malaysia, Indonesia. I thought that they were good old made in USA's, just like the TRW bearings I was going to buy off of eBay a few days ago. And I emailed both sellers and they both said the same thing. These products indicate they're manufactured in China. Web Core Packaging Corporation. Dana, people finding a better way. Look at that label. I don't know. I think I'm putting in some cheap Chinese ball joints. Or Asian, or offshore. Which brings us... How do you find brake line tubing on Rock Auto in the Universal Parts fitment catalog? I tried pipe, brake, line, tubing, nothing. All they have is short lengths. They don't sell coils of brake line. They do of heater hose. I need some more for Mr. Crud. So 2 things are going to happen here. One, I'm going to use one of my many new camera mounts. I bought several. This one uses a spring clippy like a hair clip or a chip clip to hold the device. On the other end, you slide this movable portion down, you grip the quarter panel. Not much quarter panel there. Maybe not even enough to grip a device. You pop this thing in here, just like that. You open that up, you pop in your device, and then you aim without taking off the quarter panel. And oh, look at that. Hear the quarter panel crunching? So, I'm going to try and not get in the picture. I'm going to pause this for a minute. This ain't going to work because you're going to see my bald spot. So I'm going to take this mount. See if I can mount it. Give me a sec. I'm going to drop this device and bust it. That's not good. I'll start cursing and it won't be a family channel anymore. All right, I moved the camera onto my trusty steel office chair, which matches the generation of everything around me, the building, the vehicles. Open a little bit of gas. We've got 1,500 pounds. Crank on the welder. I've got a water bottle so I can cool this off. I've got a ground clamp. I've got my welding hood. And I've got to have someone create that new channel for me. Digging with CW. I'm going to weld this and spray it. And hopefully, I won't melt too many things because this is the only way that grease fitting is going to stay where it belongs. And the first thing I'm going to have to do is crank the welder way up. And now I've got a big blob of garbage weld. Watch your eyes, folks. I thought of doing something else. I thought of JB welding the thing on. But now I've got it welded on. Camera mount. Right. Got a whole bunch of them in the office. I ordered 4 of them. They all have their benefits and disadvantages, mostly disadvantages. So I've got that welded on. And a bit of grease will escape from there, but I'm not going to weld it all the way around, because if this grease fitting goes bad, which it shouldn't because it'll be all full of grease, how do you change it? But I think I've got that well attached. The gas is turned off. Nothing is simple. Nothing. I'm certainly not the best equipped mechanic, or the best mechanic. Maybe I'm not a mechanic. I'm going to put fluid film inside here because this was really rusty. I cleaned it up. Fluid film doesn't have a high melting point, so we're going to go with the wool wax, and maybe it's got a higher melting point. I've got to finish putting this together. I've got to put the anti-lock brake clamp back on, one more ball joint bolt. Got new bushings. We've got no rust on the brake lines. This vehicle has been through. I brought it back in, when did I bring it back? November 2010. 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. That's 8 years, 8 winters. And I would say that the rust proofing that I did has held up pretty well. Just a little bit of rust here, you got to touch it up. I was watching a gentleman, tool teardown, rust proof his vehicle with a little handmade, homemade, put together device. These guns are expensive. He made one out of a $15 Amazon this and a $5 Home Depot that, and put a plastic tube on it and a hose clamp. He did a good job. Man's ingenuitive, he speaks well, makes good videos, doesn't say like, you know, doesn't clear his throat too much. You should watch his channel, Tool Teardowns. The only difference is I don't use fluid film anymore, and I got my wool wax for free. And I've got to put those banners up. One more thing that's going to take 15 minutes. Let's do a bit of promotion for the gentleman from Kel Sport Products who sent me these items. They're still sitting in the same place. See? One good turn deserves another. And I'm sure this product will be just as good, if not better, than the fluid film. I've got a couple of spray hoses. I've got a very nice, very well-made gun. And I don't have the lights on in this part of the shop, and the gun is manufactured in Italy. Wool wax, auto undercoating. You've got to spray it. If you don't drive them in the winter like me, you haven't got a problem. But if you do, you've got to get out that wool wax. Spray, baby, spray. If you happen to have driven it in the winter, you've got to wash off the salt and the mud and the muck. Do a thorough job, because anything that you spray on, and don't spray on rubberized undercoating, do us a favor, don't spray on bar and chain oil. It'll affect the rubber seals around the door. Now, to protect themselves, these companies say that their product could harm the rubber moldings, but this is thick and rich with fluid film. Look at the bottom of the doors. Beautiful. I kept it up. You got to keep on top of it. And I don't believe that fluid film, nor will wool wax, which is a lanolin product manufactured from poor sheared sheep, I don't believe it's going to affect any of the rubber moldings. I did notice, as I was mentioning a minute ago, that the gentleman, Tool Teardowns, covered up his brake components. Don't worry about it. If you do get some on the rotor, wipe it off. It'll burn off in no time at all. I noticed that fluid film does not have a very high melting point, and I'll show you that in a minute. I spray everything. I'm even going to spray inside here in the fins of this cheap Chinese rotor. I'm going to spray it with white grease. Got some rust there. We also had a fair amount of rust on the backing plate, to the point where I had to take a grinder with a stiff wire brush and clean up the backing plate. And we have the same problem. Got flash on? Nope. Got the same problem on this side. This side's going to be disassembled soon enough. For some reason, fluid film, I would imagine wool wax, doesn't work as well on galvanized surfaces. Look at that backing plate. Now, I would say it was 50% rusted, 40%. You've got to keep up on this. You just can't let it go. You've got to clean it up, fix your four-wheel drive. This side's going to get done next, needs ball joints. I'm going to put 2 calipers on, one of the sliders was stuck. I sprayed that. Yeah, it'll have to be cleaned up as best you can. Don't ask me why the rust gets to it, except to say that rust never sleeps. But for the most part, 99%, we've got no rust here at all. And I rust-proofed this as soon as I got it back from Phoenix in the late fall of 2010. No corrosion. Now, I did mention to you, there's my puller to put back the key for the torsion bar. Once I get the bolt that I had to cut off to get the lower control arm off. I did mention that fluid film and possibly wool wax is a low melting point, and the area around the thermostat outlet or inlet boils off the fluid film and gets corroded. I sprayed this with white grease, I believe, white lithium grease. Buy it by the can, $3 or $4, and spray, baby, spray. But there's still some areas that get a little bit of corrosion. You got to keep on top of it. Remember, this has also been through 8 salty. I mean, they put salt down here, boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Do they put salt down? So now I've got my ball joint welded up. Where'd I put it? Gone. Everything just disappears. Walk around in circles. Got this grease fitting welded in. I sure hope it's the right way. Yeah, it goes down on the other side. That's inside the vehicle, so that should be in the right orientation. And I'm going to put a grease gun on this and see how she takes the grease. Whoops! Butterfingers, give me a minute. All right, got my ball joint. And I hope there's grease in this grease gun. Let's see what happens. Oh, look at that. Coming through the little cuts they've got in the stud. Success. I only saw a tiny bit of grease leaking out some from the edge, so that's a rinky-dink way of doing it. Mr. Dribble Chin Mechanic has come to the rescue again. Nothing ever takes 15 minutes. I just repaired the universal joint on the steering of my G5. It was tight for the last month. I thought I had a defective electric power steering, and I thought about it. Wait a minute, I've got a U-joint on this, I bet. I went and looked, it was all rusted. So I took some spray fluid film. One day we'll get wool wax in a can, and and now my steering is all nice and sweet. I still got a bad U-joint, but at least I can worry about it in the spring when it's warmer outside. So I'm going to put this together. I'm going to put away my mount and bring all the tools over to the other side, because part 2 is yet to begin. We got our cheap ball joints of questionable origin, and we're going to put our head to work on this side, because I think we need ball joints. And how are those bushings? How good could they be? With maybe they aren't so bad. How am I going to drill out the rivets without putting a control arm in a drill press? And you got to release the tension on the torsion bar. I think I need some Leroy diesel service oil cooler lines. Get rid of these with a little paper clip that holds them on. That caused the failure of other Suburban. You haven't seen what's back here, have you? Seeing as how we have a video, it's pushing 20 minutes. Just to recap, we've got our Corvair Spider that I've had for over 10 years. We got our Suburban from California, 63 Corvair diesel Suburban with a half-installed motor from that DOT dually, and my Tornado, and Mr. Squeaky Mouse. Hope to see you digging. Digging with CW. Are you sleeping? Oh man, I got mice in my air cleaner.